welcome to everybody joining via Zoom. This is going to be a fun one. Always enjoy talking with Mike. So the reason we did this webinar is I have been asked, it's got to be like 150 times in the last 2 months, if I will share this flow chart that Mike created like 3 years ago. Right? How long ago did you create this flow chart, Mike?
It was like right when you guys got going. Like Sisu was a startup. We were like one of the first customers over there. And I was like, oh man, I need a visual tool to get my team to understand in one shot how to use this application. And that's when I created it.
I bet you that flow chart has maybe saved you like 100 hours of explaining this process over and over to every single person, right? So it's huge. I love that you did that.
And I literally haven't changed it at all in 3 years. It's still the exact same. So it's time tested and it just works. So
you know how you have a beautiful and amazing process is if it can last 3 years like that. That's amazing. So we're going to dive deep into that today. So I'm Zach. I'm with Sisu. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with Sisu, we've got Robert Sagers here from the Sierra Interactive team as well. And then Mike, who has really early adopter of both systems, right? Mike, how long have you been with Sierra and Sisu?
Yeah, so Mike Novak from Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle, part of Real Brokerage and the Novak real estate team. Been a Sierra user for 4 years and a Sisu user really since you guys started. I think you just got going over there, Zach, in your position when I kind of reached out and started looking into Sisu. We were using CTE and we were looking for like kind of a more automated approach to our data. And I saw the dashboard of Sisu and I was like, oh my God, that is the sexiest thing I've ever seen. I want to get in on that. And so that I was immediately sold just by how clean Sisu looked. So the product kind of sold itself to me, but 3 years or so now.
Now, I want to give a little bit of legitimacy to Mike Novak as a person, though, just in this one regard. I could do it in many different levels. I think Zach could as well, having known Mike for a long time, is that Mike said he's been with Sierra for 4 years, but that's not altogether true. You left Sierra for a time and came back, and that's probably a topic for another webinar. But Mike Novak is in many ways the peak client because for a service and a provider like Sisu or Sierra Interactive, because Mike Novak is willing to leave if you don't match what it is that he's needing. Now, I think now we're in a very different place. And Mike, there's a lot to be shared. Like I said, a completely different webinar topic, but this is somebody who is willing to put your product through the ringer and provide tremendous feedback all the way through too. I know that I receive a tremendous amount of value from Mike as a client and as a person. I think you do as well, Zach.
Oh yeah, just want to be like Mike.
I just try to break your guys' technology as much as often as possible. So Robert and I talk practically every day on Marco Polo about different things we're testing out as a team and giving them product feedback, and just about life too. We love our connection. And then Zach and I talk all the time as well. So appreciate the relationships with both of you guys way beyond just business, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so housekeeping rules. This is being recorded. We will send it out to everyone who registered. Or everyone who's here, you will get a recording of this webinar shortly following once the recording's processed. Feel free to forward that out. If you have someone on your team that you think should be here, send it to them. It could be a very powerful, 30, 45 minutes that they spend watching it. Totally. We do want this to be interactive. So please drop chats as you have questions. We'll get to them at the end. The reason we want to get to them at the end is because a lot of times, those questions are answered as we're going through the webinar, but feel free to just drop those notes in as you have them so that we can make sure we hit as much of it as we can. And I think that's about it. Mike, let's get into this. Let's pull up the slides and take a look at these legendary processes.
I went one too far. So I thought before we got going too far, I wanted to just kind of highlight the reasons that we use both of these platforms. There's lots of options in the CRM and IDX space. There's a couple of options in the data analytics space for real estate. So I just wanted to share with everybody just kind of our reasons for using each one of these platforms. Like Robert said, we've been with Sierra for about 4 years now. We left Sierra at one point. We kept our account there, but we kind of went to go build our own CRM. And we quickly realized that it was very, very hard to do that. And we were better off just taking advantage of Sierra's product development team and their development resources. And we quickly went back to Sierra. So one of my favorite things about Sierra is not only the product team, but just their general approach to customer service is awesome. There's other tech companies out there that, you're getting offshore support. You're talking to somebody that doesn't understand the platform. And with Sierra, everybody is domestic. Correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but everybody is here stateside, which I really have a lot of value for that. And a lot of my friends that I've brought to Sierra or that also use the platform also appreciate that level of support. So it's not perfect, but it's dang good, which I have a lot of respect for. So the first thing is the people. And I love Ben and I love Robert, and just their whole leadership team is awesome. I feel like these guys are paving the way as far as where to take a CRM and what's possible. The second thing is the mobile app. Robert really drove the mobile app for a couple of years. What was it, 2 years ago now, Robert, that you guys kind of started that process? And then
started some time ago, released a little over a year ago.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest features to be released with Sierra. It's a product that I have broken many times. I had kind of alpha access to it, and it was a decent app to start with, and it's become absolutely exceptional over the last year or so. Like literally their product development team has rolled out dozens and dozens of updates to the app, and it mobilizes an agent in a way that no other real estate app can. So I'm a huge advocate of the app. I use it personally myself. I spend probably 2 or 3 hours a day in it. I will do my lead conversion from my couch watching a movie with my kids. I will clear my notifications, when I'm just walking around. Like it really mobilizes the agent. So I love the app. It's highly effective, and it's something I just have a lot of appreciation for. The second thing is a new feature to Sierra. It's called the automations platform. And the automations platform for Sierra is super, super robust. It's a new product that not a lot of people have really jumped into yet, but that is very powerful. And the basic logic of the automations platform is if I do one thing and other things are true, then do this action. So what that could look like in very simplistic terms is if I apply a certain tag and my criteria is that this person is a buyer, then I want to apply a buyer action plan and update the buyer status. That's the power of automations that Sierra has built in the last 6 months. They started this project back in June of last year. It was a kind of a vision that myself and Robert and Robbie T and some other people had, and Sierra's team knocked it out of the park with these automations. And what it does is it just makes it so much easier to manage the database. I don't have to do 10 different things when I touch a lead or have a conversation with them. I can do one thing and everything else happens automatically. So it's more efficient, but it also is a more accurate database because I'm a human and I make mistakes. And this helps me to make sure that my database has got the right tags, the right statuses, the right action plans running at all times. So it's definitely an efficiency thing and an accuracy thing as well. The third one is the fully automated action plans. We have moved into a text-first conversion atmosphere with leads. Leads do not respond to phone calls. They respond to targeted phone calls, meaning they know who you are and you've maybe talked to them off of text, but we have less than a 7% contact rate on just calling leads that we have not spoken with. So we have really taken our lead conversion, we've shifted that into text conversion, and Sierra has knocked out of the park again with their fully automated plans. There's other CRMs out there that do not allow you to text your leads, and it's very difficult to reach the best levels of lead conversion if you're not embracing text technology and those text conversations. So that's a big one. Number 4 is the partnership with Hatch Systems. So Robbie T and Eric Hatch, 2 of my best buddies out there, they developed a partner product that is paired with Sierra. And it's basically an operating system for your CRM. It's a series of tags, filters, and 30 or 40 automated action plans that you can run on your leads. And this is data-tested plans that Robbie's running. So the best thing you could do to have an ISA would be to hire Robbie to be your personal ISA, but that's not super feasible for most of us. So the next best thing is to have an ISA product that Robbie has written. And that's what he's done with Hatch Messaging and Hatch Systems. And I'm a huge fan of it. So
it's funny, Mike, because we share offices with the team here that works Hatch plans out of Sierra. And so I'll go pick their brain every once in a while. The ISA is like, hey, what are you learning from Robbie and their team so that I can implement it to sell more software? like they're just universal sales things that are so solid. So I love this. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so having access to the Hatch systems and Hatch messaging is really important for us. And I think there's 500 or 600 Sierra users now that are using their product, and it's just really powerful. And again, about 70% of our appointments now come from those systems. So those are kind of like my top 5 reasons I love Sierra. I could go on for the whole webinar just about Sierra and their people and their product, but these are my top 5 reasons, just in case people are curious about that. So then obviously the question comes to why Sisu? Like I said earlier, the first look I got at the Sisu dashboards, I was totally blown away by how clean they were. This is the mobile app that you see up in front of us right now, which I think is getting a big update, right, Zach?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So I look at the mobile app 2, 3, 4, 7 times a day, just because I love seeing data and kind of seeing where our opportunities are at. But I love the actionable dashboards. I'll show you later on in this webinar what the desktop dashboard looks like and how I use that in the coaching sessions with my agents to identify the opportunities and where they need to focus some of their energy at in the pipeline. The second one is the transaction and listing management. So we moved all of our transaction coordination into Sisu in the last 6 months. And our transaction coordinator has been completely blown away by how automated the system is and how visual it is to see her pipeline of what is going on. So all of our listing and transaction management are done within Sisu. If you're using Sisu and you're not using this part of it, I think you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You want to get the most out of what you're spending with Sisu. And that means that you're using 100% of the product or as close to it as possible. And if you're not using transaction coordination and listing management, I think that you're leaving a big opportunity behind there. And a lot of people I talk to are not doing that. So I can share what that looks like later on as well. The third one is the lead source ROI reporting. I was just looking at our 2021 numbers and we spent $735,000 in marketing last year. I need to know where those dollars are going. I need to know what our conversion rate is, and I need to know what our cost per closing is. And so that all shows up automatically in the lead source ROI report. I have a screenshot that I will also share with you guys and show you kind of what that looks like. Leaderboards as well is a big thing. So leaderboards just break down data and show you, 30 different things. We like the leaderboards that show top closed and forecasted units, top buyer agent, top listing agent, top appointment set. But we'll cast those onto our screens and look at them often just because everybody wants to be at the top. And it creates a level of competition within your team. And then just the whole fully automated nature of Sisu. Like I said, nothing against CTE. CTE for the cost is great, but I did not like having to change data in 3 or 4 different places. And I love that in Sisu, when we update one thing, it updates everything else for us. That creates, again, efficiency and accuracy, which is hugely beneficial to our world. So those are the reasons I love Sisu. Again, there's a lot more to it. And I don't want to understate the value of the people there either, like Brian, Frank, Zach. They have a top shelf leadership team as well. And they take just a phenomenal care of people. So a lot of love for the team here at Sisu.
Mike, did you say $735,000 on marketing?
I did say $735,000 on marketing.
Wow. Okay. I just wanted to
That's with lender co-spend, but yes.
Okay, but we'll get into this later.
Keep in mind, we're a small team too.
The level of clarity you have to have around that working, right? Yeah. So that's awesome. Anyways, we'll get into that later.
So this is maybe the most important slide we're going to look at today. This is what Zach was talking about earlier. This is the process that we wrote out 3 years ago that we still use today. I have a lot of friends on Sisu, and oftentimes they're struggling with figuring out exactly how to use the platform, and they've made it overly complicated. And if you just kind of pull that back and you go to a most simplistic version, this is the best way to use it from just a simplicity perspective. You can get super complex and advanced if you want to, but that really makes it difficult to implement and execute it with your team. If you make it simple, it's a lot more likely to get used. So I'm going to walk you through what our workflow looks like. Zach, Robert, feel free to ask questions as we go. In the circle, you'll kind of see, who's responsible for it, the agent or the ISA. It's working from left to right. And the first big milestone for us is when an appointment gets set. So what do we do when an appointment gets set? In Sierra, we tag Sisu appointment set. Pretty dang simple. Like there's no rocket science here, okay? From there, we go into Sisu when we fill out the buyer or listing appointment set form. So if it was a seller, we fill out the seller one. If it's a buyer, we fill out the buyer one. But again, it's just 2 simple steps. Tag it, fill out the form. It's that simple, okay? Next step is when you actually meet the person. That's the next step in the pipeline. So all we do, it's again, just a tag in Sisu. We have a category for Sisu tags within our Sierra platform that I'll show you here in just a second. We simply apply the Sisu met tag. There's nothing that you actually have to do within Sisu when you meet the person. This is just literally time stamping that you met them, which is really important to measuring your pipeline. How many appointments did I set? How many did I meet? That's all this is doing and measuring for us. Again, very simple. Nothing to do in Sisu for the Met. Then the next step, the next milestone is, of course, signing the person. And so again, it's just a simple tag in Sisu, signed, not rocket science. Then I go back into Sisu and I fill out the buyer or listing signed form. There's a form that's going to collect a whole bunch of different details. You submit the form and you're done. The next milestone is when the deal goes pending. And very simply, when the deal goes pending, you go into Sisu, you find the contact, and you fill out the buyer or listing pending form. That notifies the transaction coordination, and that's where they pick up the file and kind of take over on things. From there, it actually triggers a series of automations as well, like tasks and transaction management automatically within Sisu, like it's completely automated, which is pretty cool. The transaction coordinator doesn't have to go in there and manually apply and start things. It's just done automatically once that form is submitted. And then finally, the last form is what I call the Sisu form for commissions. You can do super advanced breakdowns on commissions. You can email those out to the agent, the team leader, the ISA, the showing partner, all these different people that are getting paid from the transaction, and make sure it's accurate. And so in our world, like as you can see in the little circle there, TC means transaction coordinator. The transaction coordinator is the one that is going to fill out that form. Once it's approved for payment, it is locked, so it cannot be changed. Any questions on that, Zach or Robert? Is that clear?
We got a couple. I'm answering them in the chat. I think one big thing to, everyone puts Sisu and Sierra together, and the number one thing they want, Mike, are those sexy dashboards you were talking about, right? But behind what creates the amazing dashboard with all the accurate data is actually the process. This is the process that creates extremely accurate data, right? That's why it's so important to look at the process first and say, really, if you care a ton, and you should care about tracking your appointment set to appointment met ratio and appointment met to client one ratio, those are like some of the most critical ratios that you can understand. Well, look at the process behind what happens when you set an appointment, because that process is what's going to create your data. And this is a great process for making sure nothing slips through the cracks, right?
And Mike, to build on that, I do want to, one concern I always have when people share these processes that are really dialed in is that somebody on the other side says, I could just take this and implement it, and now it becomes this thing that I have now, when I don't think it's always that simple. There are some things you can just take and rip off and like apply, but I'm curious, from your perspective, two questions. How long did it take you to dial in this process? And the second thing is, if I'm somebody who's using Sierra and Sisu or hopes to someday, how would you recommend that person implement a process like this? Just take it and it just happens? Or will they need to spend some time thinking through it themselves, even though they're borrowing it?
So, I think a lot of the thinking has been done for you here. Like you can literally just take what already works and just rip off and duplicate it. I have a 4-page document that spells out step-by-step procedures for each one of these steps. So like if I'm setting the appointment, I have a process that identifies each step in the process. And there's a Loom video that somebody can go back and watch that shows them me doing that for them. But what we did is we just shared the expectations in our team meeting one day. I shared this workflow process with people, and a lot of them just had it kind of next to them for the first few weeks as they were fumbling through it. And we set an expectation that for the first month, it's okay that you're going to trip and stumble a little bit. But after a month, we expect your data to be correct. And we expect to be correct the same day it occurs. It is unacceptable in our world to submit your data a day late, because all of a sudden we have inaccuracies now.
Okay, so it's really a coaching and accountability implementation then, to take a process like this and to get everybody on board. It's, hey, you set a grace period essentially of a month, like we're going to fumble through it, we're going to make mistakes, and mistakes are made, right? People make mistakes, but really you push on it for a month, right? And then just until it gets ingrained a little bit more and more. And you said there's just this expectation around your culture that you're not going to submit incorrect data. And how does that work for your team? People are on board with that?
Yeah, we have a team that is pretty responsible, so I've never had to like threaten them to pull them out of lead routing or something like that. I've heard of other teams doing that, but in our world, like there's just the expectation that you're going to follow through on pushing your data, and people do it. Like there's no pushback on it. They are proud of their dashboards. Like they want their dashboards to be inspected. They want to get credit for those appointments, and they don't get credit for them if they're not in the system,
And that's another webinar maybe we can do another day, which is how to create a team culture that values responsibility, accountability, and making sure everybody's on the same page. But again, for another day.
Yep. Zach, are we ready to move on from this one?
Yeah. One thing on that, I know that the quickest way to get accurate data in real time is to put up a leaderboard right? We're all salespeople. It's our love language. We love seeing our name at the top of the board, hate seeing our name at the bottom. And so if I walk into the office in the morning and I'm in second place because I didn't update my data the day before, guess what I'm not doing that day is I'm not delaying putting in my data because I want to get back on top, right?
Yeah, so that's like more in our world. Like it's on if that happens. You know what I mean? we're a competitive bunch. I think most sales teams are, so they want credit for that. And the only way to get credit for it is to follow the process. You know?
Yeah, totally. So love that. It's great. Yeah, let's move on.
Wanted to show you kind of like what the tags look like. I recommend grouping your tags for Sisu into a tag category within Sierra. So it's very simple to find them. I don't have to go searching for them. We've got 2,000 tags in our CRM. And so I've just got a Sisu category set, met, signed. And what those do is they just date stamp everything. And for the set and for the signed, I need to go in and fill out a form, and also for the pending as well. But you got to just make it really easy on your team. Like all of your tags in Sierra, in my opinion, the tags that you're expecting your people to use, they're not just like data collection tags, they're actual, or marketing tags, they're actually tags that your team uses to signify what's occurring with the lead. I think you have to group those into categories to make things very easy for your team to find. Robert, is that something you see a lot of issues with Sierra users? Like, do most people use the categories or not?
It depends with the categories. I mean, it just depends on how organized you are, and or if you're working with a partner that's organized. Then our partner platform is something that's unique to Sierra. You can work in. Mike mentioned earlier Hatch systems, and Zach, you talked about pulling out some learnings around from the folks who use it. It's a matter of, it's one of the things that's unique about Sierra, and they can help, a partner that you work with within Sierra can help to organize things for you if you are not necessarily the most systems minded, or you don't have the time for it. There's other people who are. But yeah, I mean, the categories I think are very helpful. And I think that what you'll find, even you can see it there at the very bottom of your screenshot there, Mike, it's not just that you see the tags applied to a lead, but there's also any tags that have been previously applied. You can quickly see removed, and there's a tag history as well. You can follow the audit trail all the way through with a tag being applied, unapplied, who applied it, who unapplied it, etc., which is another nice accountability piece as well.
Yeah, I hover over lead tags all the time to see what time it was applied and what date,
Right. Exactly.
Next thing is the internal forms. So Zach and I, again, we've had multiple calls with other teams, and they're getting really like super creative on how to get their data into Sisu. And it makes zero sense to me to use an external form when Sisu has all of the capabilities of having forms within their system. So I recommend using the native forms. On the screen, you can see our forms: buyer appointment form, buyer pending form, buyer signed form. The commission form is down at the bottom, and these are unique to your own team and operation. I've made my forms available to some other people, and you can get them copied from Sisu, but you're really just adding more data as you go through the process. So when I first set the appointment, I'm asking things like you can see on the screen, like what is the person's home buying experience so far? Are they just looking at homes online so far? Or they've been out looking at houses in person? What is their motivation? Are they pre-approved yet? What's their current living situation? So I'm putting things in the form that I'm training and coaching my ISAs and agents to ask on the phone call. And so when they have to go back to the form and put this data in, it just makes them more consciously aware to make sure they're asking these questions while they're actually having the conversation. Does that make sense?
And it's fill in the blanks, right? So the buyer appointment form, when you add the buyer tag, the buyer appointment tag from Sierra, it's pulling as much information as we can. Names, lead source, lead date, the date that they registered on your website, lead source, that's all coming over. So the form on your last slide, it's adding supplemental information, right? Super custom fields like maybe preferred communication method or experience, like motivation, I think is a custom field you've probably created too, Mike, right? But what's really cool about this is, again, when your agent goes to fill out the pending form, right, or the signed form, all the data that you already captured on the previous form carries over into that next form. So you're never re-entering, never entering the same piece of data twice, right?
Yeah, it's continually adding to the client's profile within Sisu as you're going. You're never going to duplicate entry it, which is awesome.
Yep.
So just a couple practical uses of Sisu. This is a very in-depth report. This is what I call the lead source ROI report. And what this is doing is it's measuring what your closed volume was versus how much you spent on different lead sources. And it's hard to see, the exact dollars on here, but you can see right here in this column, the closed volume, closed GCI, closed team income, expenses, ROI, and cost per lead and cost per close. I tend to focus most on cost per closing because I'm very curious to know how much I'm going to have to invest to get another closing from that lead source. So like, for instance, you can see on there our radio spend was $13,699 per closing. That gets me start thinking and asking the question, should we change our radio message? Should we change our radio call to action? Or should we completely cut out radio as a lead source and shift those dollars somewhere else? But it's really interesting when you start comparing like Zillow and Realtor in our market, two of the main portal lead sources, they're within like $150 on closing costs, which is kind of surprising when you look at it. But a lot of people are focused on, what is the cost per lead? And I'm a lot more focused on what the cost per closing is. I want a higher quality of lead, and I want to focus mostly on just how much I'm spending per closing.
And it takes some discipline and some longevity of tracking in order to get there, right? I mean, it's a lot easier to measure cost per lead because it happens instantaneously. Cost per closing typically is going to take a little bit longer to really sort, right?
Yes, it will. And there's a little bit of admin work involved to get this report. My assistant goes in on the second or third of each month, and she takes our P&L and she enters in all of our expenses into Sisu. So, how much should we spend on Zillow? How much should we spend on Realtor? How much should we spend on PPC? And then it's going to contrast your income based off of that. The income is there automatically, but the expense is an admin function. It takes an admin about 5 minutes a month to do that. It's just a rhythm and kind of a cadence and habit you have to build with your team.
The big thing I would also point out here too, Mike, is because you're doing commissions, the net that you made from every lead type, right? Net down to what referrals went out, all the commissions that were paid to what your team actually netted. And that's what's being compared to those expenses to give you your ROI. I think that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. This is your compass into what to start, what to stop, and what to scale, in my opinion. Like that's how we use it. It's really our compass in how we make decisions. We're making data-backed decisions. We're not guessing on what works. We're tracking everything. If we can't track the marketing, we're not spending the dollars. It's as simple as that.
I use an analogy, and usually I use 50,000, but we'll say 735,000. Like most people wouldn't walk up to a blackjack table, put $735,000 on that bet and just hope that it comes. But if you knew every card that was coming because you've seen everything before and you know who's converting and what converts at what, you probably make that bet, right? Because you know it's going to pay off. So
right.
Your confidence in throwing money at lead sources should compare exactly to how well do you know those are going to convert. And you can even get down to which agents are going to convert those leads, right?
Yeah, so there is a tool in Sisu where you can literally pull up Zillow as a lead source as an example and see how all of your agents are doing on converting Zillow leads. So you can see who's converting at like a 10%, who's at a 2%. And you can start having conversations with your agent. If someone's having a 2% conversion, do you really want to work Zillow? Are you really committed to how you convert Zillow leads? Do we maybe need to coach you on how to convert them better? But you don't have the transparency and you don't know how to coach somebody if you don't have that data. So the next report is the lead source by agent. So I really like this report just to see where the business is coming from. I check it monthly with my agents, and I pull the data at the end of the year as well to kind of see where things are going. But I want to see how much of their volume is what we call PCSOI, past clients and sphere of influence. I want to see how much business are they bringing to the team? Are they waiting to be fed a team lead, or are they actually proactively going out there and engaging their sphere? And we're always tracking how much of their business comes from sphere versus team generated. And you can see in this example, Chuck's a great agent on our team. Chuck had 40% of his business come from PCSOI. So that really drives certain conversations with him,
That's huge.
This is the dashboard I talked about that I love so much. This is available to ISAs and also to agents within Sisu. And this to me is the best coaching tool on the planet. So this is a screenshot of mine from last year. You can see all the high level analytics just tracking on the top. And then what I really look at is the dials that you see down below. And again, back to the tags in the workflow process. We start with the set, we go to the met, we go to the signed, then we go under contract and we go to closed at that point. But I can see very quickly where an agent needs to maybe throttle down or throttle back based on how this is going. If their appointment set is low, but their pendings are high. I know they're focusing on fulfilling clients. They're not as focused on setting the next opportunity. Maybe they've got too many current clients going on. They can't focus on taking new appointments. If they're meeting people, but they're not signing that person, that's a totally different conversation and coaching opportunity. What does your buyer consultation look like? How does your listing appointment look? Let's role play those and really figure out where the opportunity is to get your signing ratio up. If you have a high amount of set appointments and not a lot of mets, then there's a whole bunch of opportunities there on the phone call on how to bring value to it or the text conversation. And then, of course, the one that we struggled with that I think a lot of people did in 2021 was getting people under contract. We had a huge backlog of buyers coming into 2022. We had like 70 pre-approved signed buyers for our team that did not go under contract in Q4 of last year because there's no inventory to sell them. So it's really fascinating to kind of track that data and see where things are at. Anything else in the dashboards you want to share, Zach? I mean, this is like, to me, the meat and potatoes of Sisu.
Yeah, I love how, you look at this dashboard and you can see your process behind it. So this dashboard doesn't take any additional data entry. You're not keeping a separate spreadsheet just so that you can have a dashboard, right? Your business flows in a way that creates this kind of report. So in any day, or you said you're looking at your Sisu app like a million times a day, right? It's just always accurate, right? Because the processes are creating the accurate data.
Yep. And just so everyone knows too, like underneath the 6, you'll see the 5.8. That number represents the goals. So you can go into Sisu and they have a very advanced goal tracking tool you can use to set your goals for each of your agents, your ISAs, your team. They can do it themselves as well. And then you can kind of put it together for the whole team. But it's really important, in my opinion, to get your goals put into Sisu and then be tracking it weekly and monthly and quarterly on how you're actually doing it. It turns orange when you've met the goal. It's blue when you're behind, and it's yellow when you're right on pace. So, Robert, have you seen this before?
I think here and there, and I watched the webinar that y'all did together, I think last year, you and Mike, you and Zach.
Okay.
So I imagine you went over some of this then. But yeah, I mean, this just tells me, again, kind of to Zach's point a moment ago, how important it is that you have everybody dialed in to putting in that proper data. And the nice thing is you've got that, that competition piece around the leaderboard. If your data is not in, then it's going to hurt you, right? So that's a nice culture piece as well. But it's also nice to hear. I mean, my takeaway right now, Mike, is I'm like, this is why Mike crushes it and why he's so successful. It's not this kind of piecemeal. It's like, this is a process-oriented, disciplined approach, data-driven, which the data starts to surface the intuitions, right? It's not just data. You're not a robot. But wow, I'm just very impressed. Hey, Zach, there's a lot of questions around Zapier versus RealSync. Do you want to just speak to that by voice instead of having to write it all out each time?
Of course, I'm like answering this question over and over. So there are 2 options for integrating with Sisu. Mike actually uses a Zapier based. Now the Sisu team sets both of them up for you, right? Both of them are tagged based. So they both work based on tags that come over into Sisu and update the circles in the report that Mike was showing. The RealSync integration does pull the number of dials being made, the number of texts and emails. The Zapier base does not. So that's really the only big difference here. And both are included on our current plans. Some of our like super old grandfathered plans, we included the Zapier, but the RealSync is not included. And what I would recommend is just reach out to success@sisu.co. They can really dig into all of this with you and just make sure that you make the right decision. My take, you can't go wrong with either. The exact same workflow that we're showing here will work for both integrations. It's all tag based, appointments set through signed tags, essentially. So,
yep.
Thanks, Robert.
This is an example of what the leaderboard looks like. These are the ones that I like to cast up on the screen. You can create like, rotating one where it's going to show appointments on one, and then 20 seconds later it goes to closed or forecasted and closed. And so this is just the forecasted and closed units year to date. And again, when people see this on your screens in your office, it really drives productive behavior and competition.
Love it.
Oh, go ahead. What was that?
No, I said I love it.
And then Mike, just out of a curiosity from a workflow standpoint with your team, do you go over this together? Do you have like a huddle each day, or how do you do that?
So we share our numbers every single Wednesday. That's the date where
Weekly.
as part of our huddle, it's a longer huddle typically. You know, normally our huddle is 15 to 20 minutes, just kind of recapping the wins and the struggles from the previous day and what our mission is for today. It's very candid and raw and real. You know, if there was struggles, we like to be really upfront about that and just kind of talk through them as a team. But then every Wednesday, the huddle goes about 15 or 20 minutes longer, and we share how many appointments we set, how many we met, how many we signed, and how many we closed.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. The other thing you can do in Sisu, and not a lot of people I talk to know about this, you can create saved reports for virtually anything you want to track. And so I have custom dashboards and reports in here for my showing partners. I love the showing partner model. It's something Eric Hatch and I have spent a ton of time building for our respective teams. But in Sisu, one of the things I want to know is how many closings and how many pendings do each of my showing partners have? And you can build that using the custom report tool in Sisu. You just create a saved report and it's updated automatically as the partner gets added to the pending transactions. The other one I use is I use this to track with our preferred lender how we're doing on giving them a certain percentage of our buyer business. You know, we try to make as many handoffs to our preferred lender as possible and give them an opportunity to work with somebody. And so I want to see, you know, how many of those are they actually closing. You can see in this example here, we had 168 buy sides in this particular year. 108 used Premier Mortgage, so it's a 64.2% adoption rate, basically using the lender that we recommended versus using their own. So that's really helpful to show the lender, to bring value to the lender on the money they're spending with you, and also to optimize how your team and the lender team interact and work together. Like we just got back from our annual offsite, and our lender is a part of our offsite meeting, and we had a conversion ratio that was lower than we wanted. We had 436 handoffs last year, but they only closed 19.9% of those handoffs. So there's a big opportunity there. Like only 1 out of 5 that's being handed off is being closed. So we're looking at changing, how do we reach out to these people? What is the cadence that we reach out to them? What is the format that we reach out to them? You know, all these different variables to see how we can get those ratios up. But you don't know any of that unless you're using the custom reporting tool within Sisu.
Mike, I would just tie that back to your forms, and everything you're collecting in those forms now becomes its own report in Sisu, right? Because you can build a filter in Sisu to track that. I also see people, and I think you do this too, they can have like a checkbox of like commissions received, right? That you received the check. And so it's like, I compare, show me everything that's closed, but commissions received is not checked off. And you've got a hit list right there, right? So like people do all kinds of cool stuff like that.
Yeah, we had a couple checks go missing like 1.5 years ago, and we didn't really catch it. And then we went into Sisu and kind of started using that process where when a check is actually physically received, the admin go in there and check that box. So we have a running report at all times on what checks we've got in transit to our team that we haven't received on a closed transaction, which is like a good, just tight financial kind of control to have.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And just another thing around that is, again, you know, the process isn't perfect to start, right? And you start learning certain things and you keep dialing it in, keep iterating, keep making adjustments. And that's helpful. And to your point around the lender, Lauren, I know I saw Lauren in the chat say that their lender is in Sierra. You know, I think, you know, we're going to be talking with you and your lender here soon, Mike, to talk about that process. Completely, again, separate thing, but that's helpful to see that for those folks who do have lender partners, this is a nice way to get actionable data here within Sisu.
Yep, absolutely. I think between having the reporting for the lender in Sisu and then doing a little bit of tagging setup in Sierra as well, you can really track everything as far as the lender integration goes. So if you want step-by-step procedures on how to use that flow chart that I shared earlier, that workflow, you can email me. My email is mike@novakteam.com, and my assistant or I will send you guys over a copy of the step-by-step process we have, as well as the workflow process as well, so you have that visual for your team.
I think the biggest takeaway, Mike, for anyone, like if you haven't built that kind of a flow chart yet, like take Mike's and take it and make it your own, right? But I think, and I've seen this in myself, the process of putting the process of creating that document will expose a lot of holes and gaps in your process. So I imagine when you were creating that, Mike, part of it was coming together as you were creating it, and having to physically put it on paper, I think will really help you get these dialed in processes, right? So
Yeah. And I think like either the team leader or the operations person needs to really understand the basics of both systems as well. It's hard to explain or get somebody to adopt something that you don't personally understand. You know what I mean? So I thought it was really important as our team leader to understand Sisu and to sink my teeth into it. And so I started playing with it, and that's how I started building the forums and everything else before I brought it to my team and showed them how to do it.
Then I would say, just leadership in general, you probably got to repeat it about 7 times until the process starts to stick in, right? And just go back to it over and over, and it's showing the belief in that process and just constantly selling it. You know what I mean? It's huge. So.
Yep. Repetition is the law of learning for sure.
Yep. So, okay. You guys got Mike's email on that if you want to reach out for that. We also, if you're in our Sisu mastermind group, we have the flow chart. I'll probably send the flow chart too. Just anyone who's on this call or registered will send the recap of the flow chart. Yeah, save you from 100 emails, Mike, and the recording as well. And then as far as Sisu goes, if you're new to Sisu or you haven't gotten started or you just want to take a closer look, you can go sisu.co/demo. If you're on Sisu and you really want to get using this at a higher level, talk to our team. We got success@sisu.co. And then Robert, maybe you want to just talk to that as well if someone's not on Sierra yet, or if they want to get help from the team.
If you're looking to replicate Mike's process and workflow, you're going to want to be on Sierra. Go to sierrainteractive.com or just sales@sierrainteractive.com. Shoot an email. We'll get a demo scheduled for you. You can ask whatever questions you want. We'd love to chat with you. Mike, I'm just really impressed by this process. And I think it seems very just dialed in, man. And I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of walk us all through it. And for me, as a learner here, to be able to see kind of the way that you are organizing your business. And kind of to your point, Zach, around for yourself, the process of putting a process down is helpful, right? So there's even the process of building the process. I know from my perspective as a product manager, I know that when something may seem somewhat simple on the surface, and when I start actually kind of speccing it out, there's actually a lot of complexity that comes in, and it's worth it every time to take the time to embrace those complexities and to work through them and then come out the other side with something that seems pretty simple. And that's what's so, I think, deceiving, Mike, around your original, like, here it is, it's pretty straightforward, some tags and then do this data entry, done. But I know that there was a lot of complexity that you had to embrace over time to get it to that place of simplicity. So thank you for that time and sharing it with us.
Yeah, thanks for all those kind of words, Robert. I think it's cool to show you kind of how we're connecting your system into something else, just for the visuals and for the dashboards and everything else too. There's so much data that's collected in Sierra that can be passed over into Sisu. Robert, I'm going to put you on the spot for just a second. When do you think call outcome will be put into Sisu from Sierra? So that when I choose the call outcome on the dialer, it's then going to automatically put it into Sisu as a conversation or a call attempt.
I think you'll see it here in the next couple of months. It's an issue of just updating API. I know we've talked, I think, with Zach about this. I've talked with Scott, who's a great guy at RealSync. Those of you who are wondering about RealSync, Scott Solari is awesome. And they partner so close with Sisu. We've had these conversations. We just had a number of items that came up over the last several months. Some of them anticipated, some of them unanticipated. Some of them are very, out there and are known, and some of them are not. And they don't need to be. Just to say that we're aware.
With you too, like
we're aware of the desire.
We brought this to Robert maybe 2 months ago, and he's already got his product team trying to get it on the roadmap. So it's a work in progress. I know a lot of Sierra users have reached out to me asking about it. So I just wanted to hear it directly from Robert on when it's coming.
Thank you. And in this webinar, which actually does have an effect. So thanks for putting me on the spot.
Of course.
Love it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for the time, and it was an awesome webinar. We'll send the recording out. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Yeah.